the lack of clarity on issues like currency and EU membership, it shouldn't come as any surprise, should it, that Standard Life is looking at the possibility of relocation if there's a yes vote?
Scenario planning is normal for any business, but when you look at what Standard Life have said, they've highlighted the areas where the Scottish Government is seeking the agreement with the UK Government in the negotiation period. The Standard Life and the Scottish Government are very close on what we want. We want to see a shared currency area, we want to see agreements for prudent financial regulation. That's the view that we're putting forward, and it just shows the kind of danger that George Osborne has been causing by coming up to Scotland with his scare stories and his threats. If you want to judge Standard Life's commitment to Scotland, you can either look at their two-century record or the fact that they've just put £75 million into St Andrews Square in my constituency in a joint venture with Peveril, which they've described as a long-term investment. You have to follow the money here, and while it's very prudent for any company to look at all the alternatives, the only danger here is if the UK Government continues with its very dangerous bluff.
Gavin, SNP says Standard Life's comments show exactly why the Scottish Government's plans for a currency union make sense.
I think when a company that's been here for almost 2 centuries is doing risk analysis and preparing the ground in case they need to move certain parts of their operations, when that happens, the Scottish Government needs to sit up and take note and provide some answers. They outlined 5 areas. One of them was personal taxation, where the Scottish Government hasn't provided clarity. They didn't call for a currency union. It's simply not true to say that. What they said was there is uncertainty about what currency an independent Scotland would use. Now, if we remain as part of the UK, it's clear we would retain the pound in the same way that we do today. The UK Government and other political parties within the UK have said we wouldn't have a currency union. So it is now for the Scottish Government, now that that option is off the table, to say what the plan B would be. What would they do in terms of a Scottish currency?
Marco, you have to sit up and take notice of this.
Well, back in 1997, when there was the referendum for the creation of the Scottish Parliament, there was a national newspaper that did a survey of 1,000 businesses. 76% of them thought that if there was a yes vote then, the climate in Scotland for business would get worse. There was a yes vote, and since then Scotland's economic growth has increased, and we've become, according to global business experts Ernst & Young, the best place outside London to invest. They described our economic performance as sparkling. Now, it's perfectly reasonable that people should look at all the alternatives, but I think that after independence, with the population we have, the English-speaking population, the highly educated population, and the financial powers to make ourselves an even more attractive place for business, that we may well find businesses relocating into Scotland. Scotland's economic future is released with independence, and anybody who's trying to scare the people of Scotland from the other parties, from the no campaign parties, really needs to take a hard look at what they're doing.
Gavin Brown, you say that independence would cost jobs. How many jobs?
Well, we don't know at this stage, do we? Because we haven't had answers to any of the key questions. But let's look at financial services specifically. It's not about the no campaign running scare stories. This is an independent company who's done their risk analysis, who have put out in black and white in their annual report what work they're currently doing. But a separate Scotland would have a separate financial regulator. That is beyond doubt. That is in the white paper. In the white paper, they say they want to match as closely as possible what would happen south of the border, but they make it clear that it wouldn't be identical. And I think that's the fear in the financial sector. If you have separate financial regulators, separate markets, there is a risk that jobs and headquarters move south. Perhaps not overnight, but certainly over time.
Alf Young, what do you make of what the politicians have said there?
It takes us nowhere, this kind of argument, in a sense that none of these questions are going to be answered this side of the vote. So when companies like Standard Life raise these questions, it's a question of where that goes in terms of playing with the voters. Some will feel it's an affront to Scots, that a company that was nurtured in Scotland should even think of going, so they'll take that view. Other people will be worried. They'll not just be worried about their jobs, they'll be worried about their pensions and the other things that Standard Life handle for them. So there's no real way of telling which way this is going to play. In the polls so far, since George Osborne talked about there being no monetary union, haven't really shown one way or the other that it's moving either way. But I'm not sure, because we don't have referendums very often,